At 2,000 feet off the ground, there's no room for error. No rope, no harness, no second chances. Just fingertips, friction, and the force of gravity, waiting for even the slightest misstep. This is free solo climbing. No safety gear, no backup plan. Just raw human strength against ancient rock. For some, it's the purest form of climbing. For others, it's sheer madness. But for a handful of climbers, it was something even more than that. It was purpose, clarity, peace. And for 4 of them, it was also the last thing they ever did. These are the haunting and unforgettable stories of 4 world-class free solo climbers who fell to their deaths, doing the thing they loved most. 1. Martin Fistel, the mountain purist who refused to fall. Martin Fistel wasn't just a climber, he was a purist. By 27, he had already become one of Austria's most gifted alpinists, with a style that left fellow climbers speechless. But while others chased fame and sponsorships, Martin rode bikes to climbs, sailed across oceans, and refused to fly, all to reduce his carbon footprint. He didn't just climb mountains, he respected them, studied them, and tried to protect them. His environmental commitment went far beyond most climbers. Martin would research emissions from various travel options, often taking weeks longer just to avoid a single flight. For him, this wasn't performance. It was purpose. And his true artistry came alive on ice. Frozen waterfalls, steep alpine routes, these were sacred spaces to him. Martin believed ice climbing wasn't a sport, it was a contract. You didn't fall. Ever. His partner, Simon Guedel, once watched Martin scale an ice roof on a route called Affogato, suspended by only a tiny ice screw. With nothing but strength and trust in his tools, Martin pulled himself over the lip. A fall would have meant death, but Martin didn't fall. Not then. On May 18th, during a solo climb on Austria's Scharnhorstspitzen, his foot slipped. He fell 130 feet. Rescue came fast, but not fast enough. Simon later wrote, "You truly succeeded in your goal of living your life with a small ecological footprint. But Martin, your footprint in my heart is huge." 2. Austin Howell, the man who climbed to silence his chaos. Austin Howell was a different kind of free soloist. Outwardly, he was cheerful, social, and even a little eccentric. He had a solid social media following, a podcast, and a bright smile in almost every photo. But behind that upbeat presence was a man who wasn't just climbing for adventure, he was climbing to survive. In 2008, when he was just 19, Austin's life took a brutal turn. He was climbing indoors when his belayer made a critical error and let go of the rope. Austin fell 35 feet and hit the ground hard, fracturing 3 vertebrae and several bones in his feet. But it was the brain injury that changed everything. Doctors told his parents he'd suffered a slow brain bleed, the kind of trauma that doesn't just heal. It changes who a person is. Not long after, Austin began to spiral. He confessed to his mom that he had gone to the top of a building and thought about jumping. He was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Crushing, depressive episodes would leave him feeling like a stranger inside his own mind. That's when climbing transformed from a sport into something deeper. Austin started free soloing. And for him, it wasn't about cheating death. It was about finally feeling alive. When he climbed, the noise in his head disappeared. He wasn't sad or happy or anything at all. Just focused, present, whole. He once wrote, "When I'm on the wall, my mind shuts down. I feel no depression, no happiness, just total focus on the next move." Climbing wasn't an escape from life. It was the only place that felt like home. In 2015, Austin took another hit, this time on El Capitan, climbing with ropes. A piece of gear popped and he fell, landing head first. He fractured 5 vertebrae, his skull, his shoulder blade, and lost hearing in one ear. Doctors put him in a coma for 10 days. When he woke up, they told him he'd never climb at a high level again. That didn't sit well. Austin removed his casts and his neck brace and went straight back to the wall. But something had changed. He started pushing harder, riskier. His climbs became bolder, barefoot ascents, candy tossed from his chalk bag to passing climbers, all while wearing his signature newsboy cap. Online, people loved it, but some began to worry. Was he chasing freedom, or was he running from something? On June 30th, 2019, Austin was at Shortoff Mountain in North Carolina. He knew the routes well. Earlier that day, a photographer captured shots of him mid-climb, but later, he was alone. Two climbers nearby, Riley and Jay, recognized him by his colorful shirt and cap. They watched as he climbed a route called Dopey Duck. Austin was about 30 feet from the top. He lunged for a hold, a big move but well within his ability. Then he yelled one word, "No!" and he fell. Riley later said it was silent. Austin didn't scream. It was like he knew. Jay rappelled down to him. He arrived just in time to watch Austin take his last breaths. For over a decade, free soloing had been Austin's therapy, a way to silence a mind that never stopped screaming. But in the end, the very thing that saved his sanity became the thing that took his life. Maybe, in those final seconds of free-fall silence, he found what he'd been searching for all along. 3. Aaron Livingston, the safety expert who lost faith in ropes. Aaron Livingston wasn't just respected in the climbing world, he was revered. At 32, he wasn't a social media star or a sponsored athlete. He was a certified mountain guide, a quiet professional, the kind of climber people trusted with their lives. And he was trusted. Aaron had guided clients up some of the toughest peaks in North America. He was meticulous, methodical, and fiercely focused on safety. He triple-checked knots, made everyone wear helmets. He took zero unnecessary risks. But when Aaron climbed for himself, he climbed without a rope. This dual identity baffled some. The man who insisted on safety for others willingly danced with death when he was alone. But there was a reason. In March 2020, Aaron was on El Gigante in Mexico, a towering 3,000-foot wall, climbing with his best friend Nolan Smay. They were roped in and moving efficiently, smooth terrain. Everything felt right. Then, without warning, a refrigerator-sized chunk of rock broke loose above them. Aaron reacted instantly. He did everything right, but it didn't matter. The falling rock severed Nolan's rope. Aaron watched, powerless, as his best friend, the person he trusted most in the mountains, plummeted to his death. He spent 2 days alone on that wall, waiting for rescue. And when he finally got down, something inside him had changed. Instead of quitting climbing, he went deeper. He began carrying Nolan's ashes with him on major climbs. Every ascent became a tribute, a meditation on grief and mortality. His free solo climbs became more frequent, more daring. It was as if he had lost faith in the very systems he once taught others to trust. If ropes couldn't save Nolan, then what was the point? Those who climbed with him noticed the shift. He still guided with caution. But on solo climbs, he moved like a man who had made peace with the worst possible outcome. His final ascent came on September 4th, 2023, at Donner Summit in California. It was a place he knew well. The terrain was familiar. The wall, the black wall, wasn't even one of the most difficult. He was alone, no cameras, no audience, no safety gear. No one knows exactly what happened. But by sunrise the next day, Aaron was gone. His close friend Robert Kite wrote, "I wondered how the sun could still rise without Aaron. The man who had spent years keeping others alive had died alone on the rock, doing the one thing that helped him process the pain of losing his best friend." 4. Zach Milligan, the cave-dwelling legend of Yosemite. Zach Milligan wasn't famous by mainstream standards, but in Yosemite Valley, he was a legend. He didn't just climb there. He lived there, literally. For 13 years, his home was a cave in the national park. He worked for a cleaning service by day and spent the rest of his time on the granite walls. People called him Hater Zach, partly because of his brutally honest opinions and his socially awkward style. But those who knew him understood. The rough edges were just part of a personality too raw to be fake. His obsession started with a haircut. At 18, sitting in a barbershop in Georgia, he saw a photo of Half Dome on the wall. That image changed his life. Not long after, he moved to Yosemite and never really left. Zach wasn't in it for the spotlight. He climbed for something deeper, something spiritual. He soloed a 1,600-foot route called the Stek Salate more than 300 times. That's not a typo. 300 ascents without a rope. Over and over again, he traced the same line, finding new meaning in the repetition. He also soloed the northwest face of Half Dome more than 20 times, once in just 2 hours and 30 minutes, faster than even Alex Honnold's celebrated climb. But for Zach, speed didn't matter. Purity did. He once said that climbing without a rope felt like being in direct contact with God. His friends noticed he was actually worse at climbing when he was tied in. Ropes made him nervous. They dulled the connection between him and the rock. For Zach, the granite wasn't just stone. It was scripture. After 2 decades in Yosemite, he moved to Bozeman, Montana, started a flooring business, and lived out of his van. But the vertical world still called to him. In 2021, Zach and his friend Jason Tolano became the first people to ski down Half Dome, summit to valley. An insane descent that nearly ended in disaster when Zach's ski snagged a steel cable. He caught himself with an ice axe just in time. But the mountains always had the final word. In February 2023, Zach traveled to Jasper National Park in the Canadian Rockies to climb Polar Circus, a 2,300-foot ice route known for avalanche danger. He went alone. Park rangers found his body days later at the base of the ice cliff. His sister Martha said it best. He was world-class. An alpine skier, musician, storyteller, wicked smart and wildly original. He was one of a kind. Zach Milligan never climbed for followers. He climbed for the conversation between his soul and the stone. And in the end, that conversation took everything he had. Free soloing exists at the edge of possibility, where preparation, purpose, and peril all blur together. For Martin, it was about protecting the planet. For Austin, it was therapy. For Aaron, it was grief. For Zach, it was spirituality. They didn't die because they were careless. They died because their relationship with risk was different, deeper, maybe even more honest. They chose a life with no safety net. And while it cost them everything, it also gave them something few people ever find. Absolute presence, total connection, and a legacy carved into the cliffs they loved. If this story moved you, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications.